And so our lovely girl of the underworld, Seele, or I usually just refer to her as the Shinobu of Honkai Star Rail, it's basically gonna be back, and I would say this is gonna be a very good news for those of you who have missed out on Seele on her very first banner. But overall guys, as usual on the channel, we'll be taking a look into Seele's once again to see whether or not she's still a worth it character after all of these patches, and so many new characters have been released to help you make the best decision possible on your pooling, because I know that trying to get Jades, especially as a free-to-play player, can be pretty tough at times, considering there are so many nice 5-star characters that have been releasing in some of the patches. And so with that, let's just dive right in. Now to quickly refresh your mind guys, I'll be going through some of the most important notes regarding Seele's skills and basically covering you what exactly does Seele do as a character. So Seele's skills deals damage to a single target and will simultaneously increase her speed by 25% for 2 turns, and I would say that trying to maintain the speed boost indefinitely is very easy. Plus 25% is very high guys, turning Seele into one of, if not the fastest acting character in the game. But the biggest thing about Seele's kit and what makes her an absolutely amazing character is when it comes to her talents. But what it does is that after she defeats an enemy, Seele will get an extra turn, but she also gets a buff state too, and this can increase up to 80% at max trace level for 1 turn. And this is where Seele's crazy damage actually comes from. By simply playing her as you would with any other SP spending damage dealer, you will end up benefiting greatly from the very high damage percentage boost from this buff state that her talent gives, and her ultimate is able to deal very high number as well, because she also immediately goes into her buff state before she does her burst, which is really nice. And with her talent, even though Seele is technically a hunt character who focuses on single target, this makes her indirectly into an AoE character too, because she's able to have extra turn to deal damage to other enemies on field. And of course, if you invest into her a lot, she will be able to take out multiple enemies at a time. Seele's traces are mostly nice bonuses, with the exception of her A4, which gives Seele a huge 20% quantum resistant penetration when she is in a buff state. The resistance penetration is pretty rare and a very powerful boost to damage guys, making Seele even more effective against foes that's already weak to quantum, equalizes the field against neutral enemies. Overall, she's able to deal a lot of damage from all of the talents and bonus traces that is given to her. So as you have seen from all of her skills in kit, Seele at the start of the game, or basically earlier in the game, was pretty much a cheat code. She was technically the best DPS in the game uncontested until patch 1.2, as her reset mechanic allowed her to fundamentally break the game, with her being able to cheat turns and one-shot most of the enemies in the game. She was so far ahead of the competition that she would be the sole DPS people would place her in the S tier category. But as time went on and enemies gotten stronger, as well as MOC start to get a lot harder, you would think that Seele have gotten worse. Right, while I can say that it's actually not at all. Seele's current standing as a DPS character has led her to be overlooked quite heavily in terms of how she performs relatively to other characters with the release of Imbibitor Lunai and Jingliu. But contrary to this, Seele's place in the meta hasn't actually changed from how she was back in 1.0, and in fact she's been indirectly buffed over and over again to this point where I say she's currently having one of the strongest team in the game and will only ever improve as time goes on. So if you've heard me, then yes, I was mentioning there have been a lot of indirect buff that Seele has as the patches have gone on. In patch 1.1, Silver Wolf was introduced to the game, giving Seele another new support partner, as her defense rate and single target debuff help further push Seele in the meta, allowing her to brute force content even harder than previously and open up the possibility for mono quantum team in the future. In 1.2, Seele was given a new planetary set to use, being the Rutilant Arena set, which would further increase her damage compared to the sets of the last that you have been usually using. And of course, eventually with the release of Fushuan, it was technically the final thing Seele needed to assemble one of the strongest team in Honkai Star Rail. Mono Quantum, this team basically allows Seele to brute force any content she wants fairly easy. The team can be played with 4 quantum unit alongside with Lynx or Chinkyu being the last, but it's best to play Seele, Fushuan, Silver Wolf and a force lot matching the enemy's weakness. For example, if it's weak to wind, you use character like Bronya. If it's electro, you can go with Tingyun. If it's fire, then you can go with Asta, for example. So you're still guaranteed an implant from Silver Wolf. This team basically allows you to always bring Seele to MOC and be able to do it ridiculously easy. So of course, as we have known as patches goes on, there have been many DPSs that have been released into the game. You know, currently some of the best DPSs that actually rivals with Seele's are character like Jingliu or Imbibitor Lunai. Now, while Jingliu and Imbibitor Lunai are pretty strong on their own, doing monstrous damage, but they do lack one thing, which is their ability to be used outside of their respective content and still be just as strong. These two both struggle to be as versatile as Seele is outside their respective content. Silver Wolf, despite being an extremely beneficial character for Seele, is only really a bandit for Imbibitor Lunai and Jingliu. Since these two characters are primarily AoE and Silver Wolf debuff are single targeted, you not only have to deal with the RNG from using Silver Wolf in the first place, but also the pain of repeating it multiple times on respective enemies, costing you a lot of SP, while Seele doesn't have this issue for the most part, giving her the edge in that category. Damage wise, Seele and these two aren't that far apart as well, despite Jingliu and Imbibitor Lunai obviously having AoE to help benefiting their damage. Seele's reset mechanic is slowly being forgotten about, I would say, despite it having a restriction. It is extremely easy to chain kill and make up for Seele's lack of AoE, even so to where I'd say she's better in 5 targets than most characters, as she can potentially take out multiple enemies in one turn. Obviously, when there are multiple tanky enemies, Seele does start to fall behind, but it's not to an extent to where she struggles. It's more so just a hindrance, and Seele does clearly still have one of the best, if not the best, single target output in the game, as with decent investment, she is able to one-shot most single phase bosses with just her burst and a few of her E, as her damage is extremely front-loaded by nature and further amplified by her being able to use support like Bronya to the fullest capability. Overall, Seele is still just as strong as she always has been, and the continuous buff over time have allowed her to keep her place in the meta as the top tier DPS character, and I would say she will only get better as time goes on. And so guys, if you have stuck with me right until this point guys, I would say that the answer to the question of whether or not Seele is still a worth it character would definitely a yes. If you're able to pull, then definitely go for Seele. She's very easy to build guys, she's very easy to play too, and you will have a lot of fun time with her, as seeing her damage number doing really high, it's really fun to watch. Not to mention her teams are pretty free to play friendly too. Obviously I'll be discussing more into that in her updated team build, which will be coming very soon. So yes, that would be everything I have to say regarding Seele for you guys at this point in time. If you do have any question guys, leave it down in the comment section and I will get to you there. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, as I post a lot of Honkai Star Rail guides and builds. And obviously if you are a Genshin Impact player too, you will be filled on that part as well. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me to this part of the video guys, and with that I wish you a super day and I'll catch you on my next video.